talking to a younger child about a new baby would be like telling your partner that you're bringing another partner home, and they're going to love it. There's going to be a third partner in the house, and they're going to have to share time with you.
But
and
you're going to be best friends.
It's going to be amazing, right? It's just the concept that we put on our kids is like, to them, this is a really big deal and can be really, really upsetting.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast for conscious, cycle-breaking parents ready to turn toddler tantrums into teachable moments. Hi, I'm Cara Tyrrell, a lifetime lover of littles, mom to 2 grown and flown girls, and an early childhood educator. Through the show, I teach you my collaborative parenting methodology for nurturing your little human's mind, body, and spirit. Because how you connect and collaborate in the first 5 years is how you raise happy, healthy kids who grow into the best version of themselves and find true success in school and life. Are you welcoming a new baby to your family soon? Are you moving from a family of 3 to 4? 4 to 5? 5 to 6? Today's episode is for you. Hannah and Kelty are twins, coaches, and speakers behind the parenting movement Upbringing, and they're here to talk with you about how to make this a smooth transition as you set loving foundational boundaries, but respect your older kids' feelings about the big shift that's about to happen. They're going to share their open framework that has 3 steps to set everybody up for success. I love their methodology. I really love the way they look at parenting. They give you permission to align your personal values with your parenting practices for sanity and social change. And they live right near each other, co-parenting, so that with their partners, all of their children are able to share the same space, the same values, and grow together. This episode is pretty special. They're going to share with you a course they have for supporting you right from the start with the birth of a baby. So please enjoy. And as always, make sure that you scroll down and rate and review these episodes so that we know which content to be bringing more of to you. Welcome, Hannah and Kelty. I am so excited that you're here today.
We are so excited to be here, Cara.
So we're going to talk today about something that parents feel a lot of stress around when maybe the first time they were just having a baby, they were excited enough to not be aware of what was going to happen on the other side. But now they have 1 at home or 2 at home and another is on the way. This topic is really relevant, and I'm so glad that you're here to share your expertise on it.
Thanks, Cara. It's such a magical and unspoken transition that occurs that is such, it's important to talk about. And I think Kelty and I are such kind of, we had such different experiences as second-time parents. I think that this is relevant regardless of how you experienced that time. For me, I had very easygoing first baby. And so I think with the second one coming, I remember thinking, oh, this isn't my first rodeo. It'll be fine, right? No big deal. We'll have a lot of harmony. It's been easy so far. And then I think, Kelty, you had a little bit different of a situation where you weren't quite as ready.
Yeah, it was, I had a different situation as well because my 2-year-old started struggling the second she found out that I was pregnant, basically. So we were already dealing with trickier times before the baby came. And I was really hoping that my second would be really cool and calm and chill like yours. and they weren't either. So I definitely certainly had my hands full there.
Wow. So right from the beginning, it's just such a powerful statement, right? That each little human being who joins us has their own innate way of being and feeling and experiencing the world.
Mm-hmm. And then also, I mean, adding a new person to a family, Kelty, you always call it like a chemical reaction. Mm-hmm. With every new person, it changes the nature of everything. So nothing is really the way it was before. You can't control maybe what I at least thought I would be able to control. It was a rude awakening for me personally, right?
Well, we only know our lived experience, and we have to lean into the next level of that journey. And so, yeah, there's a lot of unknown. And I know that for me, I'm an only child. And so raising siblings is something I wanted to do. I was highly motivated to do, but I didn't have a roadmap for what it felt like to be one. You two are twins. You had a very different childhood in that you always not only had a sibling, but you had each other in such a unique and profound way.
Yeah, we did. We're very lucky we had one another. And I felt very lucky to have Kelty in my life when we had babies too, because we had 4 kids in 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of babies happening. So it was like, it wasn't just having one baby and then or a toddler and then adding another. It was like,
we had a lot of little people.
It was a lot of little people all the way around it all. Right. And that's why we love talking about this, because as the years have progressed and as we've done this work at upbringing, we've kind of figured out, what did we wish we could have known? What did we wish we could have done with our little toddlers to set them up for success, to set all of us up for success and prepare us a little bit better for that unspoken transition?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you were kind of pointing toward the fact that none of us really knew what to expect, whether we had kind of a sibling blueprint or experience before. And I think our culture and what we hear from other parents often is just it's more love, more energy, more smiles, more coos and baby feet, and more love. And I think that what is spoken about a lot less is just the more stress, the more drama, the more sleep challenges, the more resistance in some of those older kids,
more unmet needs.
Yeah, a lot more unmet needs.
And I know one of the foundational principles that you teach is that we're not all here to erase that we can't make all of that stress and overwhelm disappear. How do you support people to understand that there's no magic wand? There's just a new way of interacting with it.
Mm-hmm. We always like to say that we're all growing up together. And so I think that the experience that we had in expanding our family, and then the work we do with parents is doing that exact thing, is saying, instead of fear, let's embrace trust. Instead of control, which we want to do when we're struggling, let's embrace connection, right? And instead of perfection, which I think we all have this mindset on raising our kids and being these parents as needing to be perfect, let's just move that over to progress. And so that's what we would have given that kind of trio to ourselves. And that's what we like to give to other people, and as well as this little framework that we're excited to talk to you about.
Absolutely. So before we go there, let's talk about the kids. The ones who are also expecting. They're expecting a sibling. And what we know from the science, the research, and just honestly the daily interaction with small people is when they feel confused and overwhelmed and out of control is when they try to take control the most, which can often show up in big behaviors, big personalities, opinions. So for parents who, like you, shared you were expecting and your toddler didn't react exactly the way you thought, what do you say to them to help them understand their kids are going through this too?
I think compassion is the name of the game, right? And so we have a 3C approach at upbringing: compassion, curiosity, and creativity. And I think compassion is the first and one of the most important things that we can offer ourselves and our kids when we start seeing these things happen. And like Kelty said, it's not normalized that we're going to all struggle and seek to control ourselves and other people in our environment and our situations.
It's
and
not just the kids.
And our kids are going to do that too.
Yeah.
We're all going to be doing that. And we like to talk a lot about stress behaviors at upbringing, and looking beneath, right, the kind of gnarly, stressful behaviors, and realizing that they come from a place of unmet needs, of feelings, and of stress very often. And so much about the work we do is saying, how can we offer ourselves compassion, then get curious about what kind of stressors there are, and then creative about how to move through those day by day, meltdown by meltdown, diaper by diaper, right? to kind of start learning and growing together in a collaborative way to reduce those stressors, right? And increase our capacity and our skills and our connection along the way.
I love to hear you say that word collaborate, because that really is the foundation of healthy relationships. And what we're modeling for our children is a way to include them in the big, deep feelings, but also in some of the ideas around the solutions that will help us move through those emotions. Quick question. Do you subscribe to the Core 4 Connector? That is our weekly newsletter. Drops into your inbox every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a great way to start the week. Reconnect with the parent, the educator, the nanny, the adult you want to be in your toddler's life. It's easy, quick, and free to sign up. Just use the link in the show notes and you will get all the links that are from the last week's podcasts, just in case they got by you and you say, oh, that's the one I wanted to listen to. Right. Easy, efficient. That's my goal, is to always provide value for you while keeping your life as simple as possible. Sign up for the Core 4 Connector today. So I know that you have a framework that you put together and you have this amazing right from the start course that really helps people find some confidence in feeling like they can do this day after day. So what are the 3 steps that you walk people through that allow them to feel ready to tackle this big job?
Mm-hmm. The steps that we've devised are to share. So that's sharing relevant and developmentally appropriate information with our kids. And how we go about that is really important, it turns out. The second step is shift. So how can we adjust the routine and environment of our home ahead of time, if possible, to help them adjust and acclimate a little bit more slowly to the change of having a baby? And then the third one is love. How can we support our kids with consistent, as much as we can, emotional and nervous system support, and then setting those loving limits, right? So that, again, we can stay connected through all of it.
Yeah, I think all 3 steps are really rooted in a sense of awareness and kind of preempting a lot of the situation that will unfold once the baby comes. And I think it's easy for a lot of the preparation work before a second, third, fourth, however many babies, to be rooted around optimism. I would say a lot of pep talks, a lot of like, it's going to be so great because X, Y, Z. And I think a lot of the steps really are centered on an acknowledgement and awareness of and a sense of acceptance for the trickier elements of the shifts that are going to be taking place, and talking through those, showing those in the routine and environment, and just loving through all the kind of challenges that inevitably pop up even before the baby arrives.
Wow, there's just so much in there. What I immediately take away is this idea that love is the third step. And honestly, I dig it. I feel like like you said earlier, so many parents believe that love is the number one action that will solve everything. But what you have done is you've taken action before that through communicating, through intentional language that is going to create real meaning-based understanding for them. So how soon do you recommend parents start having these conversations of telling kids really age-appropriate and specific information before this due date? Because kids don't have a sense of time. They don't understand tomorrow, next week, or 2 months from now.
I think I would defer to most parents and their experience in sharing anything ahead of time with the kids that they currently have in their lives, because I think some kids need a lot of time and they want that time to kind of prepare and talk and feel and do all of the things. And other kids need that can often stress them out, or maybe they struggle a little bit more. So timing, it really matters and depends on your, I think, unique family. But I would say, I mean, within like 3 to 6 months, when they see if you're carrying the baby, right? Or if they're able to see you have a family that you're adopting it from, or things can become a little bit more real. Otherwise, it's a pretty figurative kind of abstract concept to them that can be a little bit tricky for them to get their mind around. But I think that when is important, and I think how is really, really important as well. I think, like Kelty said, it's really easy for us to go into persuasion mode instead of just informing mode. And so we talk about the feelings and how wonderful it's going to be. They're going to be such a good brother or sister. It's going to be so wonderful. It makes me think of the Faber and Maslish from the Siblings Without Rivalry, talking about how, talking to a younger child about a new baby would be like telling your partner that you're bringing another partner home, and they're going to love it. There's going to be a third partner in the house, and they're going to have to share time with you.
But
and
they're going to be best friends.
It's going to be amazing, right? It's just the concept that we put on our kids is like, to them, this is a really big deal and can be really, really upsetting. So I think going at it from less a persuasion focus and more of just, let's just talk about the relevant info that pertains to them, this 2-year-old, this 4-year-old, this 5-year-old, right? And do it in small ways. It's not sitting down with one conversation. It's a lot of little conversations that kind of come from a musing place, right? That maybe come from something they've said and that you then respond to. It's listening just as much as telling, I think.
Wow. That persuasion piece, that's important. I believe so strongly in setting our kids up to have successful moments, whether that be an emotional successful moment or an achievement moment. And that bar that you're talking about setting, that's a pretty high expectation to meet. And if they can't, if those aren't the feelings and the emotions that they intrinsically are having once that baby comes home, they internalize that, don't they? And it says something to them about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many ways to share information too. And I think we think, our toddlers can talk, they can understand us. So let's just talk and tell them. And I think that they do so much better when it's grounded in physical reality. So taking the conversations you have and the facts and the questions that you're answering and putting them in a little book that they could color or draw or work on so that you can refer to something real and tangible when you're talking about these things. Or you could have pictures about the hospital or the birthing center, or you can review pictures of them when they were a baby and reference them in these plans that are going to be happening, so they can actually picture, that's what happened when I was a baby, right? Or have a baby doll. We recommend that quite often, is saying get them a little anatomically correct baby doll, so then they can put the baby in context around, and the conversations can come up from this kind of baby before the baby actually comes.
There can be fun role play opportunities as well, or symbolic play with 2 little dolls or little figures or whatever they're into. I feel like it's a great idea to be leaning into what our kids are into and trying to convey some of that information or following their own curiosities about it through play, through what they love.
Speaking their language.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have the funniest story I just have to share. So when I was in the trenches with infants and toddlers designing my collaborative parenting methodology, I did it by going back to nannying, because I said, I got to have these tiny humans in order to make sure this is working. So this sweet little girl named Kate, she and her brother are 18 months apart. So about 16 months old, she has a doll, and like you say, anatomically correct. And we're doing everything, and we're showing, we're telling. And I walk into the playroom one day and she says, "Look, baby." And she had taken this baby doll and she'd kind of like hung it up on the vacuum cleaner hook and told me she had put it down for a nap. And I thought, this is fantastic, right? What a gateway opportunity to interact with her about what a wonderful thing that she was attempting to do, right? A new baby needs to take naps. Of course they do. Why don't I show you where his bed's going to be? Let's practice over there. Oh, and by the way, that's usually the adult's job. But like these little pieces of information that she was so proud of herself. And I took a picture of it because it was also kind of funny.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Well, I feel like that transitions us right into shift. So helping kids see in context the changes in their lives, right? As they're happening, rather than just giving them that information. The baby doll is great. And the baby doll is great to have once the baby's born also. It can kind of go from this, like, this is kind of like the baby, and you can, kind of build context that way, to it being their baby, and they can do whatever they want with their baby, right? Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of folks who's like,
but babies, they need to treat their baby gently too. And we're like, no, they don't.
They can do whatever they want with their baby, right? But I think shifting is about adjusting the environment and routine before. I think so often we know a change is going to happen and we're like, oh gosh, bracing ourselves. So we want everything to stay the same up until that. Let's just keep the routine. Let's keep everything stable and consistent. And then when that baby comes, though, think about how many things change for our toddlers, right? It's not just, oh, now there's a baby around, right? It's like there's who's putting them to sleep or up with them in the morning changes, who's feeding them changes, who's taking them to daycare or preschool, right? Mm-hmm. Who's changing their diapers or helping them with hygiene and dressing and bathing changes is a lot. And then all this new environment, maybe they shift rooms, or the baby's in your lap and they don't have access to you anymore in the same way. So many things shift. And so the idea behind this step, shifting, is can we take this whole kind of group of events that's going to happen and spread it out, if possible, earlier, right? To help us all kind of start practicing and adjusting.
Yeah, I like to think of the shift step as kind of like a slower acclimation process. And I want to say, on this flip side of that, some of us tend to say, okay, this kid has to get potty trained before the baby comes. And we might put a lot of pressure on some of those transitions earlier. Or, gosh, my partner's not going to be here. So, we need to start doing this now. And just kind of putting a lot of pressure on it. So I like the idea of shift as being, can we acclimate slowly with some exposure to some of those changes, whether we know them for sure or whether we don't know them for sure at all.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And there's so many unique personalized moments for each family. I know my cousin just had their second, and in the middle of building a new house, they got pregnant. Oh, wow. And so ultimately what ended up happening is baby came, and 2 weeks later they moved into the new house. And so they have toddler, new home, mom's postpartum C-section, baby's doing great, but everyone is in unexpected shifts, 100%. So while parents have done all this, and then they come to the holding space with love, right? This actually feels like it might be the most challenging step of all.
Yeah, I think that with the share step, with the shift step, these are all ideas. This is not a to-do list. So I just want to be clear about that. This is a framework, an open framework to help us build some ideas, help us feel a little more confident and clear about how we can be supportive, but they're not must-haves. And I think that the love step is the one that we can do as best we can, because it comes so naturally because we love our kids so much, right? But I think that it's based in the idea that love can show up a lot of different ways. And it's not just when we're making cookies with our toddlers or pushing them on the swing or cuddling. Love can also be shown, and this is the work we all are doing together as we're growing up, right? During those tough times. So when our kids inevitably struggle, sometimes before the baby, like Kelty's daughter, but definitely after the baby, and even into the first year, even into the first couple years, this can be a really big deal for a child, right? You're going to see more stress behavior, right? Based on the stress language, based on their skills, based on their development, based on their temperament. And it's okay. And, the idea behind this is to think and practice ways of loving them through these things. So regressions, right? Toileting, sleeping, a little more clingy. Partner preference can come up.
That was big for me. I was pretty much rejected for months.
Yeah, that's super tricky. Bigger meltdowns, longer meltdowns, or simmering dysregulation that just kind of persists through the day because they're just holding a higher stress load, right? And then sometimes even aggression to us, to the pets, to the environment, to the baby, to friends or other siblings, right? Our kids' stress language is going to look so many different ways, and it's not the baby's fault. It's not our fault. We're not doing anything wrong. This is just a natural progression as we move through this transition together.
And wow, I want to talk about that partner preference for a second, because it is so for self-aware adults who have done this work and have some education behind us, right? We know what we're saying is true. This isn't actually about me, but it feels very often like it is. And so when you say supporting kids through those big feelings with love, is that teaching your partner or in asking your partner to do some really high level co-regulation with that little human? Or, I mean, how did you process that? How did you get through it?
The specific time with feeling kind of unpreferred, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. It was really tricky because it doesn't really feel good for anybody. It didn't feel good for my daughter, who maybe actually wanted me or was having feelings of resentment or stress about the baby coming. And then when the baby was there, didn't feel good for me because I wanted to be needed. I wanted to spend time with her. I was worried about how separated we were going to be in divide and conquer land, on the other side of the baby coming. And it wasn't great for my partner either, who really wanted a break and who really needed space from her sometimes. She's, quick talker, very intense, very high needs. And that was really tricky too. And I think it was hard to trust, but ultimately that's what we had to do. We had to live a bit more in the kind of divide and conquer world and try to overlap those worlds as much as we could with the trust that the ripples would kind of ease as we went, as long as we were able to continue showing love through it. And that meant honoring that preference sometimes, and it meant not being able to other times as well.
And just welcoming all the feelings and circling back. Kelty, you also talk a lot about just connecting about the baby elephant in the room, so to speak, with our kids. Part of that love is, again, having conversations that this is really hard, right? We're not sugarcoating it. That is so hard. How are you feeling about this, right? Yeah. I think a lot of it is about thinking of how we can stay connected with those toddlers through all of it and be filling their cup, right? Increasing capacity. That's a way we can show love and be supporting them through this. So even 5 minutes here or there, or deciding which caregiving activities you are able to do and focusing in on them in those. It doesn't have to be you're taking them on mommy kid dates or doing anything big. It can just be those caregiving activities that you really focus on showing them that they're seen and loved and that they belong, right?
And a lot of that love work happens outside the moment and outside of those actual interactions with our kids too, just in terms of reducing their stress load and reducing demands and thinking, what could be adding to this stress? We can't get rid of the baby. So can we help a little bit more putting shoes on because that's feeling really hard for some reason right now? Or can we, not nag them about putting their backpack away? Because that's just one more stressor on them, right? So what's in our control? What can we be doing in terms of the routine and environment to minimize stress, to minimize demands that are just going to, pile up for them a little bit?
Yeah. It's just so wonderful that this is the way that people are now thinking about the world, right? That we are starting to see the world through our children's eyes and experience it through their emotional lens and meeting them there. And I don't know about you, but I could not be more grateful to be part of this huge movement that is sweeping the country, because we need it, and we need it now to raise a generation of emotionally well-adjusted kids who become adults who can do that for others.
I love that. And I think sometimes we're not going to be able to do this, which I always like to say. Sometimes we're going to struggle to love our kids, right? We're going to feel, especially with our toddlers, they're going to seem larger than life compared to our babies. We're going to have feelings sometimes where we're like, come on, I'm depending on you, right? Or please pull your weight compared to this baby, right? We have to keep remembering that our toddlers, like you said, they're sensitive little humans and they're doing the best they can, and they're still babies inside. And so I love that we're choosing to focus on, it's important to focus on baby, but it's really important to focus on these kids who are still babies inside, right? And needing extra support from us when we can offer it.
Yeah. And I love that all of this work that we're doing too is such an important opportunity to be normalizing conflict and differing needs. Even with a 2-year-old, even with a 3-year-old, we can be building that kind of family culture that says, we're all going through a transition right now. We're all struggling, instead of, no, we need harmony. No, we need ease. No, we need everyone behaving the way to make things simple, right? And kind of like resisting that reality that we're all feeling anyway. And I think raising kids and babies is hard enough work, but it's extra hard when we're resisting that reality of, this is a little bit challenging right now, right? Mm-hmm. So much of that work is really just accepting how it's feeling for everyone, how everyone's doing, what's stressing everyone out, and just kind of getting real about it. Mm-hmm.
There's just so much more here that we could unpack. I mean, we have not talked about the people who are outside of our nuclear household and the expectations they have when they come to visit a new baby, and that exists, those other kiddos. But I actually had, I knew this interview was coming up, and I turned to my community, and they had a couple real specific questions. So is it okay if I shoot those at you?
Yeah.
Awesome. I had a mom who wanted to know what happens when the baby is crying, right? I'm a breastfeeding mom. My baby is crying. I know that it's me that's the adult, but my other child really needs my attention. Is it okay to put this child down who's crying for a few more minutes and attend? Or, how am I supposed to divide my time so that I'm honoring both my children's needs?
That's such a great question. And it really is maybe the first time that a lot of us have to feel that sense of like, which kids' needs do I meet? As our kids get older and older, we feel like that all the time. But with the baby crying, that's maybe one of the first times that ever happens. And I think one of the big things that we talk about in our upbringing coaching and in the Right from the Start course is it's okay to put the baby down. Right. And I think a lot of us are trying to be attachment type parents and be holding the baby all the time, and to be showing our toddler and kids loving limits and trying to work on their patience. And I think we like to remind people that it's okay to put the baby down and let them cry for a minute. And we help people kind of walk through saying, okay, baby, I'm going to put you down for just a second. I need to see your brother. I'll be right back. And then we go to the older kid and we tend to them, we say, we'll go check on the baby in a minute. So verbalizing what we're doing so that the older kid kind of gets that. And so that the baby will slowly start to understand that as they get older too.
Yeah. As long as the baby's okay and is just a little bit fussy and upset, I think it's okay to put them down. And it's important to show, like you said, Kelty, our toddlers, that they matter and that we can prioritize them sometimes, even just for a brief moment. And then outside the moment, we can always make a plan with them too. When this moment's happen, it's so tricky. And I know that you're like, Mom, I need you. And I'm like, baby needs me. What do I do? How do I do it? It makes me so, feel so overwhelmed. And so what could we do? We could have like a code word, or, you can make a little plan with them. So then it's not as distressing to them in the moment. When it happens, you could be like, oh, code word moment. Here we are. So they could be like, oh yeah, I talked about this with mama. And then you talk about it again after. So this is something that's going to come up a lot. It's so much about this is just practicing these conversations and normalizing these challenges with them.
Just what I love so much about all of it is that in that model, the toddler never feels unwanted, pushed away. You have to wait. It's time for you to be patient. Like all the things that we used to say, that we used to hear. I know I've heard them in my lifetime, and I wasn't even a sibling. Just that honor and that respect between humans, regardless of the size of the human. So beautiful. Okay, so last question from a mom. What is the best way for me to introduce my child to their sibling so that they know it's not necessarily all about me or their dad, right? That there's an autonomy about who we all are as people.
That's a really interesting question. The introduction moment. I've been thinking about that with cats because I have like cats and kittens, and like, how do you introduce them to each other so no one gets hurt? And I think it really depends on the temperament and age of your kid and how they would best feel. But I do like what you're kind of alluding to, maybe, Cara, that introducing them as child to baby without mom or dad necessarily holding baby or owning baby could be really supportive to this toddler. So having the baby be in their little bassinet or in a little crib or, somewhere very safe, and being very close to your child so that you can support them, but being next to them and seeing the baby together could be really supportive. I think very often, and this happened with us, we were holding the babies when our kids came in, and some of our kids didn't do well with that. That didn't feel good to them.
No, my daughter was all about the water bottle at the hospital. She was just like,
she just ignored it.
Main thing.
Because baby, we think in some ways because baby was with mama and held by mama. And she was like, how do I access mama right now? Or mama versus baby, who do I focus on? Right? It was a little tricky.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you're bringing me all the way back. I know yours. What is the age range of your kids right now?
Our sons are 8 and our daughters are 10.
And mine are 19 and 21.
Wow.
But you're bringing me all the way back to the birth of our third and Claire coming to meet her sister Caroline. And she wouldn't even look at me. Yeah. She just wanted to eat the ice cream. And so they brought her ice cream and she sat and ate it.
Yeah, that felt safe to her, right? I think, again, we're not the creators of this sibling relationship or this experience. A lot is out of our hands and that's okay. And trusting in what our kids say and do and need in those moments, the first meeting and then all the way through the first year and beyond, right? We just need to be there to support. We don't have to make it a certain way or make it perfect. And then sometimes we find out it didn't go so well, or they needed something else and we weren't there, and that's okay, right? We can always process it with them later.
Always. So you have a really fantastic course called Right from the Start that supports people through the first year when they really need the most. And I am thrilled to be able to have you share that with my audience. And if you're having your first baby, that's great. If you're having your second, your third, there's always ways to grow into this experience at a new space.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. We created the course with a colleague of ours, Jen Lumenlin from the Your Parenting Mojo podcast and courses. And she's just incredible. And she sort of came up with the idea because a lot of the people she was working with were struggling with new babies and the older kids all together. And she was reflecting on her own early motherhood and the fact that she was all over the birth plan. She's like a high researcher in everything. And once the baby came, she just found herself feeling really out of her depth in what to do, how to do everything. I think that's when she started going back to school for all of the child development research.
So many websites, so many opinions. It felt very overwhelming to her. And so I think she wanted to create the course to have just everything in one place, the research, and then the respectful, foundation with it as well, so that other parents wouldn't have to be Googling and asking and constantly being like, is this correct information? I'm just not sure. And then Kelty and I came to it from more of how does that actually look in all of these areas of our baby's life in the first year? We work with parents of sensitive, strong-willed, and neurodivergent kids 2 to 12. But what if parents could do the work that we're doing, choosing connection over control and working on all of those skills alongside our kids in that first year, right from the start. And so that's kind of where we came from the course is what does that look like? How does parenting a baby in their first year go when you're trying to take these principles that you're working on with your older kids and applying them to that first year to add a little bit more ease, right? To simplify everything that's going on, not to add more to your to-do list or make you feel like you need to be perfect in some way. So the course has, I think it's 10 modules in all of the areas: feeding, dressing, bathing, play, movement, all of the things, including one on us, the parents, which is very important, right? I think it just seeks to help us understand what feels unique and correct to us, what feels right to us, right? So it's not prescriptive, it's not dogmatic. It's the course that we wish we could have taken our first year for sure.
I think a lot of it too, for me, is about taking things off our to-do list as parents. I think it's so easy with every kid. I feel like it's piling up more and more and more to do, more to be focusing on, more to be kind of creating intention around. And a lot of it is just things that we can take off our mental, emotional, and logistical plates with a new baby.
Wow. Well, that is fantastic. And we will have the link to access that course here in the show notes. And I know that you have another course in the making, and I would love to invite you back to the show when it's ready. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Kelty and I are creating a sibling conflict course. What are we calling it? The Sibling Conflict Revolution,
Possibly,
because we believe conflict is revolutionary. It can be if we approach it with, again, the compassion, curiosity, and creativity. And we see it as revolutionary as in like a circle where you revolve and evolve with your kids through every conflict over and over and over again. As you get more skilled, they get more skilled. You all get more connected through it all. So I think sibling conflict is one of our biggest things that we work on with folks because, some didn't have siblings. It can be really triggering. It can be hard to be juggling the different personalities and needs of the kids in your home. And so we're excited. We're excited about it.
I think the whole goal really is to be raising conflict confident kids, like we were talking about earlier. Yeah, that's the majority of the course. And I think that we'll be learning alongside our kids through it.
Don't we always? I love that. As a teacher, I always said, I learn as much from you as you learn from me.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being on the show. I've learned so much about what you're doing, this big work in the world. And I just know there are just certain episodes that I can feel that grounding ease and it oozes out. And I just know people are going to listen. And as they're listening, they're going to feel like, oh my gosh, you know what? I can do this. I am capable of this. I can do hard things. My kids can do hard things, and we can do them together. Thank you so much for all your wisdom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cara. It was great to talk with you.
All right. To my toddler tribe out there, you know what to do. Stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.